Okay, I really need your attention for this video because I just made a realization that has given me a lot of clarity about how the spiritual world interacts with the physical world. Well, really interacts with us, right? And I think that's important to know because I think the thing about religious trauma is that we constantly think that there's this enemy that's affecting our choices and is in our head and making our lives miserable, when the truth is the enemy really is yourself and the choices that you keep making for yourself. But I want to give you guys some peace of mind, so I want to share what I learned, right? Or what I believe about the spirit world and why my belief has given me peace. Okay, so I'm gonna start with how I even came to this realization, and I only fully understand it now because I've had several other little realizations, and it's just all like connecting to each other like a puzzle piece. And the way this kind of clicked for me in my head is I was about to tweet something having to do with like a situation that I'm going through right now, and as soon as I was gonna click out of the page that I was in to go to Twitter, I accidentally clicked on a notification from Twitter. So it took me there anyways, so that means it was meant to be. And everything that I read, it was a reading, it was a prediction. And everything that I read really resonated with what I was experiencing right then in that moment. It just gave me so much encouragement, and it just let me know that I made the right decision in ending something that wasn't serving me, and that I was realigning back onto the path that has been laid out before me. But we have free will, right? And so even though the path is right there, we still choose to like do things our own way. And sometimes doing things our own way makes us, we get distracted and we go off of the path. We kind of get stuck there, or we go back, or we go in circles, right? Because we wanted to go our own way. But speaking of the path, I had a realization about this actually the other day. And I'll get to the actual like bigger realization that's gonna like clear all of this up for you. But I need to go through the small ones first. So, on a day that I decided to do something different and to push through my feelings of not wanting change and wanting to be comfortable in my home, I pushed myself to get out of the house and to go to a place that would inspire me. And I went with my best friend, and it ended up being really spontaneous that we went to go explore our campus in the middle of the night. And while we were there, I went to go show him a cool spot that I knew was like in the sort of like we call it the monte, but like in the trees, right? Like hidden. It was hidden. And so I go to show him, and then we're walking back to the path that we were initially on, like the sidewalk, right? Like it's concrete. But for some reason I didn't want to walk on the concrete. I wanted to walk alongside the concrete. So I had a clear vision of the path, but I was going to walk alongside it. So I was still doing it my own way, but I had a clear vision for the road ahead, right? And I could choose to go back and do things like proper, right? Proper what everybody else is doing, right? They're taking the easy route on the sidewalk. But if I do that, then I'm missing out on the really cool spot that I found in the trees, because I'm choosing to walk on concrete instead of choosing to walk on grass. And so people think that you have to like You have to be this clear-cut person and this prim and proper and this perfect Christian and this, like, no, right? You don't have to be. And that's the concrete, right? That's boring. I want to be the person that walks barefoot on the grass. And I'm still going the same direction. I'm still being led to my success. But it's going to look the way I want it to look, not the way everybody else wants to look. So sometimes God, yes, puts a path before you that's easy and clear and like you know where it's headed. But then there's that like secret path, the dirt path that you kind of don't see, but like you kind of like you could tell maybe an animal has gone through there, right? But no human has. And so you could be that person that goes through there and you are opened up to a whole other world that nobody else gets to see. You could choose that for yourself. We have free will. Free will. The word will, right? I recently learned that it has so many meanings. You should look it up yourself, because I'm not going to remember all of them. But like, I just realized the word will means you have to want something. You have to want it to have the motivation to carry it out, right? We have to want better for ourselves, or we have to want different. We have to want change. And the thing is, it's like most of us do want change, and that's like really like why we feel the emptiness inside of us. We're too comfortable. There's no excitement. But it takes us a while to realize that we're not allowing that change to come forth because we want to be comfortable. Change feels uncomfortable, right? And it's not going to look like everybody else. And so like, I'm hearing you have to stop people pleasing and just be who you are. That's all God expects you to do, is be who you are. Be who you are and hope that you make the right decisions for yourself. Or there is, no right? Like, the decisions that bring you joy. That's what God wants for you to make. Going back to free will. So, the word will means expressing the future tense. Right? So something will happen. So let's associate that with free will. That's interesting because it's like, again, it's expressing the future tense. Right? So free will means, it could mean that we have the freedom to choose our futures, obviously, right? And so, number 2, expressing inevitable events. I thought this was a really interesting definition of will, because inevitable events, accidents will happen, right? Or life will bring obstacles, right? These things are inevitable. It's kind of like, even though we might make certain decisions that don't necessarily add value to our lives, it's inevitable that one day we will, because of that, right? Because we keep making these bad decisions, we're gonna get to a breaking point, or we're gonna get to a point of realization and make the changes. It's inevitable. So even though we have free will, yeah, like we could stray off the path, like I said earlier, I'm still inevitably gonna reach the destination. But if I do things my own way, if I make decisions without God, without Holy Spirit, then it's either going to take longer for me to get there, to get to the inevitable, or I'm going to have a lot of useless pain, or I'm going to waste my time. It's just, why prolong the inevitable? Make the better decisions now instead of later. Right? Okay, I want to read number 3. the third definition of will. Expressing a request, desire, consent, or willingness. But I think it's interesting that it, like, the word will also expresses a request. So it's like God is, even though he tells us like you could do whatever you want, he's still hoping, expressing a request for you to make better decisions for yourself, right? It's not an expectation necessarily. It's just wanting you to get with the program kind of thing. Like, come on, wake up. Yeah, God is pleading for us to wake up and see him in our lives. Or her, or they, or whatever the hell. Yeah, let me read number 4. Expressing facts about ability or capacity. So again, we have the freedom to choose what we are capable of. Again, we have to have the will to want better for ourselves or become better. Like lately I've been having that on my mind, that I am my greatest asset. And because of that, I want to build upon myself. Chisel the stone to create a beautiful sculpture. And because of that, I'm starting to learn new things and get better at what I'm already, naturally good at. I'm making myself an asset, not only for myself, but for other people as well. Now to number 5, expressing habitual behavior. And so, again, it's kind of expressing the inevitable. Like, people show patterns, right? So you could kind of guess what people are going to do. And so I feel like that's like what the spirit world, that God kind of does for us, or with us. Because we have free will, because God knows our hearts and knows who we are, they can make really good guesses on what decision we're going to make next. And that's where I think synchronicities come in, right? Like, because they know your heart, they're going to put things in front of you that are going to speak to only you. And the devil does not know your heart. So although the devil will put things in front of you, they don't speak to you the way the good things does that are from the light. But they will tempt you. And that's why you need to really know yourself and know what your morals are, know what you stand for, know what you want, so that those things cannot tempt you anymore. The devil only knows your habits, what you do, but the devil doesn't actually know you. So the enemy will send obstacles that are going to speak to your habits, but they don't necessarily speak to you, your soul, yourself, your spirit. So use that for discernment. Use that to guide you. I'm going to say one more thing, and then I want to get into something I wrote down. But first, let me read the 6th definition of will. It means expressing probability or expectation about something in the present. I want to go way back to an experience I had. I was with my ex-boyfriend at the time, and we were watching a show. And I was leaning my head on his shoulder, and I was half asleep, but I was still listening to the show, but also not. I was somewhere else. And suddenly I got snapped out of it, and I say out loud, according to the probability. According to the probability. And I don't talk like that. I don't even know math like that. For me to be saying that. But I really felt like I was having an important conversation with something in the spirit world. And I didn't understand that experience until I read number 6, the 6th definition of free will. Expressing probability or expectation about something in the present. So I was having a conversation with somebody in my spirit team, or maybe God, maybe Jesus, maybe Mary Magdalene, maybe my grandpa who died, who knows who I was speaking to. But I think we were talking about my orders. All I knew is that I received orders in that conversation. I just didn't know what those orders were. And so I replied, according to the probability. I think it was even the probability of my own choices. Oh, well, what are the chances that I'll finally make a different decision than I normally do? What are the chances that I'll finally embrace change and actually do what I need to do? And so, yeah, I was like making plans in the spiritual realm for my physical experience, my material experience. Just reading that definition really brought clarity to not only how the spirit world interacts with us, but how I interact with the spirit realm as well. And so life is really just a huge like guessing game, but nothing is ever really certain. Nothing. That's reminding me of something I wrote. Hold on. So I wrote down, according to the probability, the spirit world isn't certain of anything because nothing is certain. Everything is entirely based on the will to act on it. Everything is entirely based on the will to act on it. If you want to manifest something, it's entirely based on your will to act on that thing, that idea, that, you need to put the force to get something moving. Because no thing is certain. If we don't act on anything, then nothing is going to happen. Your life is going to stay the same. You're going to stay in the nothing until you decide to make a change, to carry out a different vision than the one that you had yourself that got you to this point, to this unfulfilling point, if that's where you're at. I realized just now, because when I went to go look for this thing that I wrote down, I found this other thing that I wrote down right after it, and it said that I always end relationships right on time for the spring, right on time to bloom. And it's so interesting because I think that time when I had that like dream or whatever, that I was talking to somebody in the spirit realm, it was while I was in a relationship, right? And I was saying, according to the probability. And I just realized a pattern that I have of getting into relationships in the winter, which is when we feel the loneliest, when we want somebody the most, when we want warmth the most, right? When we need to feel loved because we feel so alone. That's what winter brings. And it naturally makes you want to hibernate, right? Or some people might call it isolate, but really it's just our body letting us know what we need is to isolate. But we don't want to let ourselves rest. We constantly want to be distracted with something instead of just allowing the nothing. So we take matters into our own hands, or I take matters into my own hands, and I look for that warmth outside of myself instead of internally. And I put all my attention onto these people instead of onto myself. But it always teaches me something. Like being in a relationship always teaches me so much about myself, and it always gives me like an ego boost. Like it always like makes me even value myself more. But first it takes me not respecting myself and not making the right decisions to get to that point. But if I had just made the decision with God and recognized that this person wasn't for me, I knew that from the beginning with all these relationships. I knew that this person wasn't going to be, end game for myself. But I wanted that warmth. And then by the time spring starts coming up, I start to provide that warmth for myself. And then that's when I'm ready to cut off relationships. And it does end up being in the spring when literally the sun comes out. That's my pattern. And while I was having that conversation in the spirit realm, I was in that pattern of putting all my attention into somebody else and running from myself. That's my pattern. Yeah, I say according to the probability. I probably said according to the probability, she's going to be done with this relationship by the spring, and by then she could start to work on her music and do this and that, right? I didn't end up doing that because, again, I like fell into other patterns. But yeah, I think I really feel like that was the conversation I was having. It's like, oh, like, when are you going to be done learning the lesson from this cycle? Oh, well, the probability is I'll be done by the spring, you know? It's crazy, like, coming to that realization. And it's like the spirit world is just waiting. They're just waiting for you to make better decisions for yourself, waiting for you to chase your blessings, because your blessings are waiting for you. You have to chase them if you want them. They're not going to come falling on your lap. Whew, okay. I have said so much more than I initially planned, but let me actually get down to the nitty-gritty. Let me read to you what I wrote. From all of these little puzzle pieces, I put them together to write this. So the theory is that the spiritual realm actually can't affect your choices, but it can try to steer them. And that's what synchronicities are for. It's like little clues for the scavenger hunt we call life. Follow the synchronicities. And I talked earlier before, the devil will place things that are familiar to you, but are bad for you. And again, that's why you need discernment. You need to have a clear mind to see these things clearly. And I'm really getting that verse, like, you need to be sober-minded, so that you could see where the enemy is in your life. That's not what I wrote, that's just what's coming in right now. Let me continue what I was reading. Let me give an example of what I mean. There's this movie I saw that really helped me understand this. It's called Focus, and Will Smith stars in it. Ooh, that's so interesting. That just came into focus for me, right? Like, focus. Wake up. Wake up. Focus on the things that you already have on your life. Focus on yourself. And focus on what you're putting your focus on. Focus on what you're putting your attention to. Just pay attention. Be mindful. Be aware. Be aware of the signs. Be aware of the clues. And have a sober mind to be able to put them all together and get you to your destination. Lead you to your destination. Okay, let me go back. In the movie, he plays a con man, but let's forget for a moment that he's conning someone. In the movie, he makes $1 million bet with another millionaire that if the man picked a number of one of the football players on the field, he'd be able to guess it. He put $1 million on the line, having full faith that he was going to guess it right. But it wasn't a guess at all. What the man didn't know is that Will Smith's character had been planning the number 55 throughout the millionaire's day. In license plates, on a billboard, a man yells it outside of his car. And although the millionaire sees this, he doesn't actually see it. It's stored in his subconscious mind, and it's for that reason that he chose player number 55 and had to give away $1 million to Will Smith's character. And he didn't realize that he fell into the trap, or if we follow the signs, if we notice the synchronicities, we will be falling right into place. Oof, that's good. If we follow the synchronicities, then we'll fall right into place. Ooh, I'm gonna tweet that. That was good. Okay, let me continue reading. The character put everything on the line, hoping that his efforts to steer the man's decision would land. So I was thinking that the spirit world interacts with us in a similar way. What we think is intuition could really just be programming from the other side. But there's dark and light forces over there, which is why we require discernment to interpret the signs. The devil is in the matrix. In our daily programming, to beat the devil, we have to undo the wiring and reprogram ourselves with the good things that we're guided to. The good things. And you'll know that something is good based on how it makes you feel. It's a lie. Whatever the Christians say or whatever the Bible says, like, it's a lie. Our hearts are not inherently wicked. They're not. Okay? I really truly believe that deep down there's a good person in there. We just have to choose to be that person. Again, you have to choose to be the person that wants better for themselves. So, when you feel good, when something makes you feel good, or when a synchronicity makes you smile, follow that. What brings you joy, do that. Be around the people that get you excited about life, not the people that bring you down with them. Be the change that you desire for your life. I'm just hearing that's it. That's the answer to all your problems. It's for you to be the change. For you to start doing the things that maybe you never even knew you wanted to do, but it was under the surface. And again, you need a sober mind to really know anything, to know what you want, to know what you need, to know who really cares about you and who doesn't. You need to be sober for that. I don't know, whoever's watching this, maybe you're dealing with addiction. So yeah, if you want to see things clearly, then you have to be clear-headed. If you want to see things clearly, then you need to wipe away the fog. Swipe away the fog. I'm hearing annihilate the problem. That's interesting, because I don't use the word annihilate at all. I just saw 1313 on the time. But yeah, I'm gonna end that here. I want you to know that God loves you, and God is guiding you, and God is just waiting for you. God is just waiting for you to go on your scavenger hunt.